Hello everyone, I'm so happy and excited to welcome you here. I hope you're good and I'm good as well. So now we go on to today's project. What I want to do today is just to walk you through how to develop basic bodice pattern for a top. And if you have a basic bodice pattern for a top, you can also manipulate it and turn it to maybe a basic bodice pattern for a dress as well. All you just need to do in that case is just to insert your hip measurement and the dress length. So for this, what are those things that you will need? Of course, you need your basic pattern paper, you need your marker, you need your measuring tape, you need your scissors, you need your measurements. I've transferred my measurements on this board so it will be easy for me to just peep into. You need a tape, and of course you need your French curves. And let me just quickly mention this. If you are still using your free hand to draw your armhole curve, your neck curve, I can tell you boldly that you are still on a long thing. You can just get this. I got mine from Amazon. Yes, they make life so easy for you, gives you your perfect curve, and makes your work neater and very easy. Just like I said earlier, your curve master, for your neck curve and the armhole curve. So let's go ahead and start inserting our measurements on our pattern paper. Now the first thing we will do is to insert our vertical measurements. And what are those vertical measurements? Of course, the first thing is your length, the length of the top. And the next thing is your armhole, your bust line, your waistline. Those are the vertical measurements that we need. So I've drawn a straight line, an imaginary line, which is going to act as the starting point for all my vertical measurements. So the next thing now is my length, top length measurement. For this, I'm using 25 inches and I'm not going to line the top. So I will only add 1 inch hem allowance. For instance, if you're going to line the top, you will need to turn the top inside from the edge. That means you will need to add more than 1 inch. You add like 2 inches. It depends on what you prefer. But for this project, we are going to add just 1 inch since we only need to hem it in after sewing. So these are our top length, and this is the 1 inch extra for the hem allowance. So the next thing we'll do is to go to discover our armhole point. And one thing I would like to draw your attention to is this. For all body measurements, while you want to transfer to your pattern paper or maybe directly on your fabric, you divide all measurements by 4. You divide all measurements by 4. The only exception is your shoulder measurement. And shoulder measurement, you divide that only by 2. But you divide it by 2. In this case now, the shoulder measurement we are working with is 15 inches. And when you divide it by 2, it gives you 7.5 inches. So 7.5 inches, all you need to do is just add half an inch to give you your armhole point. Now let's go ahead. 7.5 inches plus half an inch will give us 8 inches. So this is going to be our armhole point. And the next thing is your bust point. For this measurement, the bust point of this client is 11 inches. The next thing is the waistline. The waistline is 16.5, and of course the last one is the hip measurement, which is also the edge or the hem part of the top. Now I'll just roll this out so the lines will become more visible as we are walking. Just follow through. It's a very simple process, and I can assure you you're going to enjoy every bit of it. Yeah. The next thing now is to insert our horizontal measurements, and we start with the shoulder measurement. Like I told you earlier, you divide your shoulder measurement by 2. So we have, after dividing by 2, we have 7.5 inches, and you add your half inch allowance in order for you to use that to attach your sleeve to the bodies. So we have 8 inches in all. So the next thing, if you notice in human body, if you are standing, your shoulder is not actually straight, is not on a straight line with your neck point. So that means we are going to apply what we call the shoulder slope. So from your shoulder line, you are going to come in by 1 inch to give you that perfect fitting of the shoulder slope. So 1 inch, then you come to the neckline. You get your neckline, which is 3 inches. For this top, we are using 3 inches because it's a high neck top, so the neck is not going to be wide. The standard measurement that is just reasonable for you to use in this is just 3 inches. So you pick your curve master and just connect from this 3 inches point, connect it to the 1 inch point you have earlier. So you come to this point as well. Whatever you measured as your back measurement, on this your armhole line, you measure it here as well, which is 8 inches, and you connect with a straight line. You understand why we are doing this shortly. Connect with a straight line. So the next thing you do is get your midpoint. That means from here to here, the midpoint from the shoulder line, which is 4 inches. Just put a dot here, 4 inches. And what are we going to do with this 4 inches? We are going to come in at this point with half an inch, such that if you notice, the frontal part of the body, especially the upper part of the bust, is not as wide as what we have at the back. It's a little bit you have to reduce it a little, so it will give you the perfect fitting that you need at the upper bust point. So you are just going to come in by half an inch from this point, just half an inch. Some people may decide to come in by 3/4 inch, but half an inch is just perfect for you. So you come in by half an inch, and then you connect to the shoulder with a straight line, the shoulder points with a straight line. Don't forget, we need both lines, but just for us to be able to understand the measurements we have applied on the paper, that's why I'm drawing the line out so it won't be confusing. The next thing, you come to the bust point. This is your bust point. In case it's going to be confusing, you can just label it out. This is your armhole point. You can just represent it with AP, and this will be your bust point, which is BP. This is your waist point, which is WP. So you just take your bust measurement. Like I said earlier, the bust measurement we are using is 40 inches. So you divide it by 4, which will give you 10 inches. This is our 10 inches. Then you go ahead and mark your seam allowance and ease allowance. So I'm going to add 1.5 inches. Some people prefer adding 2 inches. It depends on what works for you. But once we have our accurate measurements, why do we need to add extra? It will just sometimes makes the material to be bulky inside. So the smaller, the better and the smarter it is on your clients. So we are going to add 1.5 inches. So this same measurement we have on our bust point, transfer it to the upper bust point as well. So 10 plus 1.5. So the next thing is you pick up your armhole curve. First of all, you draw that up. This is the outer line is what we are using for the back armhole curve. The inner line is what we are using for the front armhole curve. So you just connect this from here. You can see what I'm saying. Just connect to this point. It's as simple as that. And for this, just make sure you come in here where your line ends here, and just connect from here to this point as well. So this is going to act as your front armhole. So the next thing we'll do is to insert our bust, our waist measurement. So our waist measurement for this project, the waist measurement is 36 inches, and if you divide 36 inches by 4, it's going to give you 9 inches. So you just go ahead and insert 9 inches here. The same seam and ease allowance that you added at the upper part is what you're going to add here as well, which is 1.5 inches. Then the next thing you do is just pick up your curve master and connect both lines, both points with a straight line, the bust point and your armhole curve. Yeah. So the next thing will come to the lower part. that is where we're going to take the hip measurement. Actually, we are not going to insert the full hip measurement here. Reason is the top is only going to rest on the upper part of the hip. It's not going to rest fully on the hip where the hip point is actually shooting out. So it means whatever you have as your hip measurement, you subtract 2 inches from it. That will be enough for you to for the top to comfortably rest on your hip line. So for this project, the hip measurement we are working with is 42 inches. But like I told you, we're going to subtract 2 inches from it. That means we are left with 40 inches. And that 40 inches, you go ahead and divide it by 4, which is going to give us 10 inches. Then you go ahead and mark your 10 inches, not on your hem allowance, but on the actual length of the top, which is 10 inches. And you add your 1.5 ease and seam allowance. You go ahead and connect with a straight line. So we're almost done with the front pattern. So the next thing we need to do is the neck depth. So for this, we are working with 4 inches. Like I said, it's a high neck top. So if you want your top neck to be lower or higher, you can decide to influence it from here. So you can either make it lower. If you want it to be lower, maybe lower than this, you can go as low as maybe 5-6 inches. It all depends on your preference. So we've gotten our 4 inches. The next thing you do is you pick your neck curve and just you use this to just connect and draw your curve perfectly and very easy. So we are done with our front bodies. So the only thing you need to take into consideration now is when you want to cut this first pattern out, you are only going to cut the back armhole. You are not cutting the front armhole yet. After you must have cut out the back pattern, then you can now go ahead and trim off the excess that we left here and the front armhole. I hope that is clear enough. So let's quickly pick our scissors and cut through. Cut through. Don't forget to cut the back armhole, not the front yet, because we are still going to replicate this same measurement on the back pattern. Make sure you cut carefully. Carefully. Good. The next thing is you cut from the shoulder slope. Cut through the neck, but remember, let me cut it out first. Your back neck depth is not going to be as deep as this, so we are going to measure the back depth, which is going to be 1.5 inches. 1.5 inches, and at this point you can use your free hand, just connect with a dot. So you go ahead and cut it out. Cut the back armhole out, the back neck line out first. So after cutting the next thing we want to do now is to cut out the back piece. So the only difference, like I told you, we're just going to replicate the front piece. We're going to replicate the back piece with the front piece. But the only difference is we are going to add our zip allowance, which is going to be 1.5 inches zip allowance. I think this is a little more. Let's shift it a little bit. So 1.5 inches zip allowance is what we have. So, but there is this thing that is really common. You see some people that when they wear their dresses or the top, there is a part that is always bulging out at the back, and this is as a result of excess in the material, which normally occurs at the back around the waist, between the underbust and the waist point. So what we're going to do now for you to get rid of this is you just take your measuring tape. If you still remember, this is our bust point and this is our waistline. So between these points, you just take out your half inch, so by that, and just go 2 inches below your waistline. That is where the taking out is going to stop. So half an inch, and you just use your curve master to just join the half inch that you've dotted out, join them together. Now the next thing you're going to do is you're going to use your curve master. You just turn it to the back and draw it out so it will fade out gently. It won't be too sharp. And come to this point as well, do the same thing. It will fade out gently, not too sharp. But remember that when you are going to sew in your zip allowance, you are not going to sew in 1 inch here, having in mind that you've removed half an inch. You are still going to sew the same 1.5 inches you are sewing from the neckline to the end part of the top. So by doing that, you would have taken in the excess that may occur around this area. So when you are sewing, remember you are sewing 1.5 inch, not minding that you've taken half an inch in from here. So that is the only thing we need to add to this. We just go ahead and cut out this exact piece that we have here. Don't forget, we are still coming back here to cut out our armhole, our front armhole. So, but let's duplicate this first before we cut down out. So, we are almost done. We are almost done. Yes. Neckline. You come to this point and cut out the half inch we took in. Cut it out gently so you won't cut more than what you have taken in from here. So now we have our back piece measurement ready. So the next thing you do now is you go ahead and cut out your front neckline. Our front neckline is out already, and again you cut out the front armhole. Front armhole. There you go. So you have the front armhole and the back armhole. So you can just go ahead and label it. This is the front and this is the back. Now we go on to cut our sleeve. Now we are done with the front and the back piece. The next thing we want to do is go straight ahead to cut our sleeve pattern. So now we will take your tape, just like we did for the front bodies. Get your straight line and an imaginary line, which is going to serve as your starting point. So for this piece now, the sleeve length measurement we are using, because it's a long sleeve, it's going to be 22 inches and it has an elastic, so we'll add additional 1.5 inches that we are going to fold in at the hem part. So just roll it out and roll this out as well. Now I don't know if you noticed, while I was cutting out the front and the back piece, I didn't cut on fold. What do I mean by cutting on fold? You know, this is folded into two, which is exact way you're going to fold your material when you want to transfer this measurement to your exact your real material. So but I'm cutting this sleeve out because you might want to, you know, maybe insert some patterns and you need to cut through at the center, so you need to cut the sleeve on fold. So for this now we are cutting on fold. And which measurements are you going to use for the folding of the material? Whatever you use as your armhole point from your shoulder length is what you are going to use. You add 1 inch and you fold that for your sleeve, round sleeve measurement. And if you remember, we used 8 inches as our armhole point, and 8 inches here, you just go ahead and add 1 inch, which is just 9 inches. So the next thing you're going to do is you come to this point and just come in by 4.5 inches or 5 inches. It depends on how high or how curvy you want your armhole, you want your sleeve, the upper part of the sleeve to look like, how curvy and how perfect or you want it to fit in. So for this, we are just going to stay with 4.5 inches, so it won't be too low and it won't be too high. So 4.5 inches, you just dot it out here, and then you come here, and whatever you measured as your round sleeve, for this person, the round sleeve from 12 inches, the round sleeve is 14 inches. That means the person has a fat arm, so you just go ahead and insert your 14 inches and add your 1 inch seam allowance. If you are going to line the sleeve as well, you can go ahead and add maybe 1.5, but since we are not lining it, we are only going to sew it in, the ease and the sewing allowance we are adding is just 1.1, is just 1 inch. And then you come to the lower part, because it's going to have elastic, you just repeat the same thing you have here. And even if you want, you can extend it and just use the whole 9 inches. You know, even if there is a curve, after fixing the elastic, everything will just, it will draw it together and it will give you that perfect fitting. So the next thing you do is come to this point and just draw out your exact sleeve allowance. And the next thing, you come here, draw it up as well. And just blow it out so it won't be too sharp here, just a little, and there you go. From here, you use your free hand just to get, you can use a dotted line and curve it out to give you your round armhole shape. And before you go ahead and cut, you just go ahead, confirm whatever you have here with your measuring tape, 11 inches, which is perfect for the armhole. The round armhole of this client is 21 inches. So, and if you look at it here, we have 22 inches. The half inch is just the sewing allowance. So that is just very straightforward and simple thing you need to do with the sleeve. The next thing is you go ahead and cut out. Cut it out. There are different shapes and different designs you can use in cutting your sleeves. There are some, it might be a flared, might be maybe a short sleeve. It all depends on your preference. Whichever one you want to use, all you need to do is just to reduce the measurement. Don't forget, this is the length that we need. Yes, and that is it. We are done with our basic bodice pattern. We have the front piece, we have the back piece, and also we have the sleeve all ready. All we need to do now is just place this on the fabric we are going to use and just cut out this exact measurement, and you are good to go. I hope you have enjoyed what I put you through even in this video, and if yes, please go ahead and subscribe, like and share. You feel free to share with your friends and let them learn as well. Thank you so much. I'll see you again in the next video. Bye bye.